now I continue to go to the next session. I'm very happy to introduce to my friends, best friends. The first speaker is Anne Sauvagnargues. She is a professor in the Department of Philosophy at University of Paris, West Nanterre, La Défense, the 10th. A specialist in aesthetics and philosophy of Deleuze and other contemporary thinkers. She is the author of numerous works, including Deleuze and Art Machines, Deleuze, Guattari, Simondon, in English, and Deleuze, Unprecision Transcendental, which book is translated into Korean. Yes, this book that is thick in French, and Deleuze, de l'animal à l'art in French also. She is one of the leading scholars in Deleuze-Guattari scholarship in the world and a regular keynote speaker in international Deleuze-Guattari conferences. I spent with her at many of Deleuze-Guattari conferences in the world, for example, Lisbon, Manipur, Seoul, Tokyo, and online. I always enjoy her magnificent lectures. I hope today she'll give a great lecture for us. Yes, Anne, please.
Thank you, dear Jane. Do you, is the sound okay?
Yes, okay.
Right. So my question today will be, and how is the Earth doing? How is the Earth doing? It's a very good question, and it may recall you of the question of the third plateau in Thousand Plateau, where Deleuze and Guattari asks about the geology of morals, and they suggest that we should move from a genealogy of morals, as Nietzsche did, to a geology of morals. And I think it is exactly the situation we are in today. And it is exactly why we need today a philosophy that is capable to lead us to an understanding of ecological issues that obliges us to move from a certain kind of transcendent anthropomorphic philosophy to another kind of philosophy. And I believe that Guattari's and Deleuze's philosophy can help us to understand the times we're moving in, the times we are already captured in, who are times of disease and times of what I would call, following Guattari, capitalistic ritornellos, meaning by that we have moved into a regime of cooperation and evolution between human and non-human on Earth that we need to understand on the basis of a new systematic approach. And therefore, I believe that how is the Earth doing is the right questions to be posed today. And when I refer to the Earth like that, I do not mean that Earth should be taken as the name of our planet only. It shall not be taken as the name of one singular individual in the cosmic world. It should be taken as the name of our of the network of our habitation. So Earth is not a new absolute. It is only the immanent plane of our current existence. And how is the Earth doing? To raise this kind of questions obliges us to move to, I would say, 5 important philosophical theses. I do not say major philosophical theses, right? Because In Deleuze and Guattari's world, importance is not measured by dominance, but these 5 principles are, I believe, very important. The first one would be following Deleuze's work on Spinoza. The first principle would be to move from ontology to ethology. And in order to explain this to you, I would like to read with you a very simple quotations of 1,000 Plateaus. And if you recall, in the first plateau, rhizome, right in the beginning, Deleuze and Guattari tries to suggest that virus evolution is something that is crucial. You can find it on page 10 and 11 of Brian Masumi's translations, when they say that a rhizome is neither imitation nor resemblance. It is only exploding of heterogeneous series on the line of flight, composed by a common rhizome. And so this common rhizome can be taken as large or as small as you want. This rhizome can be me in my little room somewhere in France. It can be us, this symposium that has already switched to another level of existence, because we prove that philosophy now is digitally linked, so that we have moved from a domain that was the domain of writing, that Deleuze and Guattari criticize in Rhizome, the domain of writing and printing, that has been very important in order to understand the constitution of philosophy, because the philosophy is related to the difficulty to move from a type of society where people have only verbal art to this kind of sedentary civilizations where people begin to write down what they have done in verbal art. And this is the beginning of literature, written literature. Literature means literally that you have to write it down. And so this move to the writing world is something that has created philosophy. Now, what we need for today is not only a philosophy of the writing world, or not only a philosophy of the printing world. We need a philosophy of the digital connecting world. And this is something that Deleuze and Guattari can help us to do. And therefore, the second principle is that we need an immunology theory that is not only a theory of the subject, not only a theory of the autonomous, not only a theory of the autonomous human mind, but that is a theory of alliances and virus. And you can find this philosophy of, not a philosophy of sickness, not a philosophy of illness, but a philosophy of disease as a contribution to molecular ingenuity. You can find it in Rhizome, and you can find it also in Deleuze's later work on Spinoza in the years 80-81. In his classes on Spinoza at Vincennes, it is very clear in this book that Spinoza says, that Deleuze says, what is important for us in Spinoza is that Spinoza allows us to move once and for all, to move from the ontology to the ethics, because Deleuze is very much interested why Spinoza did not name his book a theory of the being or a theory of ontology. No, Spinoza named it an ethic, and for Deleuze, it is because ethic is the clinic of the existing relationship. Ethics is the clinic of real compositions of relationships. It is not the transformation of reality according our definition of good. And so there is a huge discrepancy between the type of Spinozian clinic that Deleuze and Guattari are about to do, and in ontology, where because Deleuze claims that ontology means that you have to put the good above the being in order to judge existence. So when you have ontology, you have a definition of the good that is superior to the being, while when you have an ethology, you have no good, no evil, and therefore you have a geology of morals in the terms of Nietzsche. You have no good and no evil per se. What you have is good or bad relationships. And these good and bad relationships are only marking a transformation of the situation. Now, I wanted to begin with this because I believe that if you read in Rhizome sentence page 10 and 11, that we evolve and die more from our polymorphous and rhizomatic flues than from hereditary diseases or diseases that they have that have their own line of descent. We evolve and die more from our polymorphous and rhizomatic flues. Meaning, and this is would be my third point. So the third point is not only to move from ethology to move from ontology to ethology, not only to provide a philosophy of disease and philosophy of immunology that is also a philosophy of becoming and transformation. What you need also is to be capable now to understand that philosophy has been captured by a monolithic definition of subjectivity, so that what we need is a new definition of the subject. And I believe that Deleuze and Guattari is part of the huge transformation of metaphysics in the 20th century. I think that we can prove that 20th century philosophy in France is haunted by the question of ecology. And you can find it with Bergson at first. You can find it with people like Gilbert Simondon or Raymond Rouillère. But in Deleuze and Guattari's philosophy, though the term ecology is not really on the front page, what is the real philosophical issue is that we are capable to define a subject that is no longer taken in the presupposition of one white masculine subjectivity defined as something that is only anthropomorphic. And for Deleuze and Guattari, subjectivity shall be open to any type of existence. So it means also that a disease is never a disease per se. It is a disease insofar it is in transformation and a becoming. And so it means also that this transformation of the subject has to be taken into what I would call, and this would be my number 4, the quarantine of the event. And when I mean quarantine in the proper sense. When you say that people are ill, you put them in quarantine, meaning by that you put them in distance. Now, the quarantine is also a period of a way to put things together and to wait until something happens. Now, the quarantine of the event is something that Deleuze and Guattari can help us to understand very well. If you remember well, they wrote in 1984 a beautiful article called Mai 68 n'a pas eu lieu in French. Beautiful article about May 68 called May 68 didn't take place. May 68 didn't take place. And this is something that we should understand for ourselves. So, and that if Deleuze and Guattari said about 68 that the event did not take place, it doesn't mean that they think that May 68 was not a kind of a revolutionary break. It was. They are not pessimistic and they are not against 68. But what they mean is to say that 68 as an event did not take place insofar it has not converted our social reality. It did not take place because the problematic that has been raised, the social problematic that has been raised, has not been solved in our societies. So saying that May 68 did not take place does not mean that it was not a powerful event. It was. It was a powerful event, but the legacy of the event remains as our problem because we did not transform it in the facts. So the force of the event is not that it is not something that takes place in space and time in our normal empirical world. It does, but the event is not what has taken place. The event is not this snap. The event is the problem that the snaps is responding to. And so therefore, an event can never take place. An event remains as the problem that we are about to solve. So we can say, and this would be my my fifth point. So we can say that we have witnessed this past 2 years we have witnessed the past two years a real breakdown of capitalistic semiotics, because what this epidemiology, what this global epidemic tells us is that the kind of coordination between human bodies, social devices, technological semiotics, agriculture and industrial way to proceed with animals, with forests, with plants, and so far, shows us that the kind of territories we have built is no longer sustainable, nor for the planet, nor for the human beings. And this is something that may be taken as a terrible news, but it can be also be taken as something that helps us to understand the reality of today and helps us to construct a new philosophy, because what we need now is a philosophy of open systems of rhizomatic assemblages that helps us to follow the rhizome. And now I would like to quote a few books, a few contemporary books that I believe to be truly Deleuzian and Guattarian in the best sense. And I would like to quote a few searchers that I believe are really continuing on Deleuze and Guattari path. And one of this thinker is Anna Tsing. She wrote a magnificent book, The Mushroom of the End of the World, trying to understand the relationship between a certain mushroom and capitalistic coordinates. This type of analysis is very, very new, because it is, in the very interestingly Deleuzian and Guattarian sense, it is the follow-up of something that is not a filiation or a genealogy. It's the follow-up of a new type of epistemology that is the rhizomatic epistemology, because she follows all the kind of conjunctions that helps us to understand the capitalistic development of mushrooms, in order not only to criticize it, but in order to make us capable to engage differently with this type of conditions. And therefore, my sixth point would be that insofar we are conducted by Deleuze and Guattari to transform totally our philosophy of time. We are, and this is a huge transformation regarding all the tradition of Western philosophy we know, because both for Guattari and for Deleuze, time is no longer to be taken on the level of on the general level of cosmological time. Time cannot be taken on the general level of human consciousness. And if you do, think about it, you will find that the tradition, the philosophical tradition concerning time, has always thought time as being the order of the universe or the order of consciousness. And this would be also the two huge moments, the two huge historical moments in Western philosophy of times. The first moment, ancient Aristoteles until Descartes, where time is understood as being the number of the movement, meaning by that, and this means very concretely that for Aristotle or Plato, for the antiques, times is the measurement of the real situation of the earth in cosmos. While since Kant, we in Europe have been used to consider time as being only the interior and spiritual dimension of our spirituality. Now, these two dimensions are important, okay, but I want to make you understand that posing the question of time like this is something that does not allow us to take a situated perspective into time. And this would be probably the most important result of Deleuze and Guattari's philosophy and epistemology. This result is that it is impossible to take philosophical point of view if you pretend to be God himself. So there is a certain standpoint position that is no longer available for a philosophy that does not want to be a theology anymore. So if your philosophy is not a theology, your philosophy has to become an ethology versus theology, meaning that in Deleuze and Guattari you can find something that has been expressed very firmly by feminist epistemology, and it is the idea that vivid epistemology has to be taken from a point of view that is situated. And so our situated point of view in the question of time has to be the situation of human existence. And this is the reason why in Thousand Plateaux, the Ritornello chapter, Ritornello has always also been translated as refrain. Ritornello is better because Ritornello is only in French, the childish word, 4-syllable that indicates a naive, infantile relationship with music, repetitive games, songs, childhood verses and rhymes. And so Ritornello engaged with temporalization, but a temporalization that is bound with individuation. So there is no time per se for a human per se. There will be temporalization for a kind of individuation. This is exactly what Ritornello is about. And so it is about understanding time on the singular and vital vector of temporalization as individuation, as configuring its milieus. And so this time is ecological. It is referring to sensory beings having each of them their plurality of rhythm. So we do not have a unified cosmological time. What we have now is the little, I would say, the situated, the local ritornello of the planet Earth moving into the cosmos in terms of spatial trajectory, in terms of an ecological vessel in the context of the universe. And so this time is neither objective nor a cosmological time. It is not the time of consciousness in general. It expresses time less as lived as inhabited, as a bundle of sensory science in a bundle of semiotics by which we extract territory from surrounding milieus through consolidation and habits. And so habits concerns the temporal milieu in the form of repetition, but what is valorized, it valorizes the attainment of consistency and the crisis by which we attain this consistency, so that any type of repetition in human life and culture has always to be taken on the edge of the crisis that had been, that forces us to come into this new habit. And so habit concerns the temporal milieu in the form of the repetition being the crisis resolution, the inventive and creative crisis resolution in which we do enter in new assemblages. And so once we said this, we can go back to Thousand Plateaus, Rhizome, page 10 and 11, and understand why Deleuze and Guattari said that we need to abandon evolutionary schemas and old models of filiation in order to understand the new type of historicity we are bound to. And this means, and I'm moving to my conclusion, this means also that what we have gained or lost these 2 past years, what we have gained and what we have lost with this virus infection is the capacity to believe that there is only one type of human history. This is also something that feministic epistemology has worked out very firmly, claiming that history has always been his story, meaning the story that is situated by the edge of the masculine dominance, meaning, and this is exactly what you can read also in Guattari's and Deleuze Thousand Plateaux, when they criticize history as being always written from the point of view of the sedentaries and not the nomads. History has always been written from the point of view of the winner, from the point of view of those who mastered writing and who mastered sedentary type of civilization. Now, since this type of epidemiological cross between humans and animals, since this type of a capitalistic cross did accompany humanity since the beginning of what we call civilization, it is very important to see that today what we have, the task that we are bound in is the task to redefine the whole hominization on Earth, meaning by that we have also to criticize, as Guattari and Deleuze did, the regime of historicity, which make us believe that only history, that history is only related to power, to sedentary civilization and to logic of state. There are different type of historicity, and the type of historicity that we are now engaged in is double. First, we have to redefine the type of adventure we have been living on Earth for a long time, but not forever, and probably not forever in the past, and not forever in the future. So we have to take in consideration more firmly our contingency and the type of a hazard, the type of a real historicity means that there is no necessity in the course of time. And so we have to engage with this real contingency, but we have also to redefine new stories, new storytelling about our living on Earth. And this is something that you may consider that a few books recently published go in this direction. I would like to mention another book that I found very interesting. It's the book by James C. Scott called Against the Grain, where Scott shows that there is a relationship that is really very important between state, grain, tax, and writing. And claiming, James C. Scott claims that cereal and grain is the real transcendental condition for state apparatus, because grain is easy to convert in a certain quantity that allows the tax to take place. And so there is a plurality of ways to understand human historicity. And this means also that one of the tasks that we have to go in the following years is to be capable to understand a philosophy that is no longer a European philosophy, that is no longer rooted only in the tradition of Greece, of Rome, and of ancient Europe. We have to move, and therefore it's very useful to do Deleuze and Guattari conference in India, and to have, for instance, Indian speakers like Meena Gupta, who is capable to explain to us links between Guattari's and Deleuze philosophy and other aspects of Indian or Chinese thought. So this type of a transformation of philosophy leads us to understand that we cannot no longer use evolutionary schemas. What we need is rhizomatic trends in order to remold our past history and to transform the type of relationship we are bound in on a digital way, and not only on a physical way, on a digital way for the entire planet, on this digital way, and on the capitalistic industrial ways that leads us to rule on Earth in this very uncivil fashion. Thank you.